This is our fourth session of the day. Dorothy called me and she said they're having an IDA in Mobile and Dr. Gibbs wants us to come, and I signed us up for 4 different sessions on 4 different topics.
We didn't want to do the same thing.
Yeah, so we're okay with it because it gave us, an opportunity to work together, which we love. And just a little disclaimer about this one. This is new to our arsenal of presentations. We've never presented this before. I didn't say we weren't going to be awesome. I just said we've never presented this before. And so we're excited to share this with you. This summer, we went to Louisville, Kentucky, and we spent a week with William Van Cleve. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you are, if you're in the dyslexia world, you know Van Cleve, you know VC. And at IDA, we were both there in Atlanta. He said he was going to try something new and have what he calls a writing intensive. And so we both got the opportunity to go. Thankfully, my school didn't have enough money for me to go. They had just enough for my registration, so I hitched a ride with Dorothy and slept in the next bed. So it worked out great. And so what we're going to present today, we learned from him a lot of it.
Yes,
So
it is worth going. If you have the opportunity to go and work up there with him, not to mention the lovely urban tour that you can take.
There are several. There's a whole trail.
But honestly, he's a great presenter. He's extraordinarily knowledgeable, and you're going to walk away with so much information that's just going to knock your socks off.
He has a book where we got a lot of this information from too that you can order from his website, and it's called Writing Matters, and it is really good. It's really teacher friendly. Even if you didn't have his training, you could read it and feel like you could know what you're doing kind of. So it's not too heavy. It's got a lot of ideas for teaching parts of speech and sentence types and writing, and that's what we're going to go into today. Is there anything else we need to say about him?
Go.
All right, here we go.
We're ready to roll. Why do we teach writing? Turn and talk to the person at your table. Why should we be teaching writing?
Okay, who wants to share? Why should we teach writing?
It's a form of communication.
Absolutely.
Why else?
We said it was a way to take what you know already and what you've learned to sum it all up and show what you know.
Gifted table.
If I don't write it down, I won't remember it.
Okay, if they don't write it down, which we talked about earlier today, we know that dyslexics need to write to learn to read. We know that. We know that for dyslexics, writing happens at the end of a pencil. They must write to learn to read. And with our kids today, sorry ladies, I know you're young, okay, but with all the technology and everything, we're moving away from that. We're getting away from that structure. What do you think about PD in writing? Do we get more PD in writing or reading?
Reading.
Reading. So we really don't get an opportunity to have a lot of PD when we talk about writing. And our dyslexics struggle horribly when it comes to writing. So let's talk about a few things that we do know.
Reading and writing are related and they impact each other. And yet, they're quite separate and different too. In fact, that is why they can be such beneficial supports for each other, because they're related, but they're also different.
Okay? We know that writing provides a vehicle for expression and communication. It is the primary basis upon which communication, record keeping, history, and art is begun.
Writing can help students understand and make sense of their own experiences, to locate context and make discoveries about their own thoughts and feelings.
Okay?
For expression.
And what I noticed, and I have to tell you just a little bit about my background, even though I gave you that sheet. My first 10 years of teaching, way back, yes, in 1979, not 1879, I taught English in the context of a writing workshop. Best thing that I ever did in the middle school, okay? Best thing that I ever did. So today what I'm finding is we speed up into 2018, we're not teaching a whole lot of writing. I see a lot of writing in the halls, all right, they're telling me it's writing, but I'm seeing a lot of very simple sentences, I'm seeing a lot of very short sentences, and I'm talking about like in a 4th or 5th grade hallway. And I get to a lot of schools, I go to 14 that are elementary schools, so I tootle around and I'm a nosy Nelly, so I'm always looking at the work that's coming outside. So, what we know about writing is when a child is reading a text, they show what is going on in their noodle in terms of comprehension in the writing form. All right, they put it down in writing and express themselves, so I know that they understand what they're doing.
In Writing to Read, Stephen Graham, who I think we referred to him in handwriting today, and Herbert cite strong evidence that writing, an essential skill itself, also improves reading comprehension.
Right, we know that literacy development is dependent on reading and writing. If we want to improve literacy skills and scores, what do we need to do? We need to write. Research has shown that when students receive writing instruction, their fluency and comprehension improve.
In summarizing his research, Tim Shanahan, who's another one of Dorothy's faves, suggests as students learn to employ more complex sentences in their oral and written language, their ability to make sense of what they read increases too.
Right, we know that reading enhances reading awareness, it enhances phonics, and we know that reading needs to be intertwined with writing for students to be able to write and read better. We used to say that, you know, the more you read, the better you write. Okay, and to some extent that is true because you're seeing modeling done. But children still need direct, intensive writing instruction to be successful. So, we know that when students write about material they are reading, think content areas. They tend to understand the material better and retain it longer over time.
And as teachers increased the amount that students in grades 1 through 6 were writing, there was a corresponding improvement in how well they understood the text. And when educators taught writing as a skill, not only did students' writing improve, but their reading also got better. So that tells us it's connected. It's gotta be. So if you teach writing, Dorothy, what are you gonna get?
You're going to get better readers.
Yeah. We found improvements in how well students read words, how fluent they were, and how well they comprehended text.
Right. We know that writing enhances comprehension. It allows us to see what students comprehend while they get it down on paper. It helps students focus their understanding and their learning as they express it in writing. Make sense? So we have to write to comprehend. It's kind of like a circle. It's all together.
Well, that's more from Stephen Graham.
Okay? Why are writing skills neglected? Turn and talk to your partner. Okay, let's take a look at our first one. Something you say okay, writing. Writing is challenging to measure. How do you score kids' writing? I see some of the most atrocious, I say that out loud, I did, writing that is outside in a hallway and there's 100 on that page. I'm not really sure what the teacher was looking for. Okay? But, you know, when well, we'll just say it wasn't very good. Okay? So, do we use a rubric? Are we going to time them for their writing? What are we going to do? Are we going to count up for spelling? And I've always counted up for spelling because every teacher is a teacher of spelling. Okay? Spelling isn't something we only do in spelling. We need spelling to be accurate across all subject areas. Just a little aside, what is the purpose of spelling?
Communication.
The purpose of spelling is meaning. Okay? If all words were spelled the same, right, we wouldn't understand them. If we said the word, jot down, bear, okay? Are they spelled the same or different? Different. Why?
Meaning.
Because they mean something different. If we had time, we would take you through a discovery, and you would find that out yourselves. The purpose of spelling is meaning. So it's hard to measure. Second, we don't even know what to teach. What's the scope and sequence? We live and die by the scope and sequence. What do we want to do? What kind of content? What kind of structure do we want kids to use? What is essential and what's not? We can't even agree in a school, never mind in a school system or state, what we want them to teach. We don't really do a lot of training. I mean, in 37 years, I haven't gotten a lot of training in writing. Anything that I got, I went ahead and had to go get on my own, which is how I ran into, William Van Cleve. I had heard him so often and was very excited to train with him. So we don't provide teachers with the tools to show them how to write. And finally, teachers will tell you that they don't have much time to write. But since we know that writing gives you a visual of a student's comprehension, and we know that our strugglers need to write to learn to read, writing becomes important and we cannot not teach it. Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. So really we teach writing not because it's easy, but because we know we must. Okay? So, what's a teacher to do?
Well, we know their side. Let's look at what the students are having to think about the whole time. Let's look at it from their perspective. Okay, like it all goes back to our first session of the day. If you've been with us all day, more power to you. But it goes back to them. That they have to correctly and automatically form letters. If they're struggling thinking about how to write an H, okay, we're not going to get very much down on their paper. They've got to bring forth ideas and then organize them into some type of way. They've got to write coherent sentences. It has to make sense. They have to choose appropriate vocabulary, and then, we want them to use some of those shiny words in there too, whatever they're called. They've got to apply the rules of grammar and mechanics. They've got to apply paragraph structure to ideas. They've got to spell. And we know that kids that struggle to spell will pick a word that's easier to spell than a word that's harder to spell, even though the harder to spell word would be a better word to choose. So they've got to make that choice too. They have to write on familiar topics, and sometimes they have to write on the topics they don't know anything about because it's assigned or ones they're not comfortable with. And then they have to consider the purpose of the assignments or their audience. If they're writing an opinion piece to the principal, it might sound different than if they're writing an opinion piece to their friends. So all of these things going together in their mind,
And they end up
and they
looking
have
like
to be able
this.
to do.
And there they are.
There they are.
All right?
Stresses
So-
them out as much as it stresses
Right,
us.
it's tough for them, it's tough for us. So let's take a look at our cartoon. Okay? Now, I will tell you, as I said, I was an English teacher. It hurts my English hard when I have 4th, 5th, and 6th grade kids who can't tell me what a subject is in a sentence. They can't tell me what an adjective does, okay? But instead of boo-hooing and pouting about it, I'm actually engaging them, and hopefully our coaches in our county, to see that we've got to start teaching parts of speech more effectively. This is going to improve their writing, which is going to improve their literacy overall. I see a lot of people hand out worksheets and work on, underline the simple subject, underline the simple predicate. And what we learned from William is if you're not going to use a part of speech in writing, don't bother teaching it. You're wasting kids' time. The purpose of teaching the part of speech is to improve writing, right? Not to go along and underline subjects and predicates or circle adjectives. Yes, you have to do a little bit of that so you can get into the writing, but you want to introduce it quickly, and we'll show you how to do that, and you want to go right into the writing as well. The lessons that we are starting to use now have 5 basic parts to it.
And when, you know, in the classroom, we were given a basal reader and it had grammar with it, okay? So I'll never forget, as a first, second, third year teacher, I would ask for help, ask my principal, like, what am I supposed to do for this grammar? Okay, this is not enough, they're not getting it, it's not working. And at the time, our principal was like, well, if you do DLL, that's enough grammar and language. Well, it turns out that wasn't right. It doesn't work. So my biggest question to Van Cleve was, how do you teach a part of speech in a multisensory way? Because I'm trying to make things multisensory, I'm trying to do the best I can, I'm trying to help my teachers, and we don't know how. And so this is the format that he used in his book, Writing Matters. He says that you do a warm-up, then you do a review on what you've already learned. You're going to introduce a new concept. You're going to have an activity, and then you're going to wind it down. So we're going to walk you through the next large chunk of this session, these 5 components, tell you what they are, and show you some examples of each one of these.
Right. So the warm-up is something that's going to maybe possibly review something you did yesterday. If I know I'm going to teach adverb phrases today, my review, my warm-up might be teaching adverbs. What do they do? Let's just review them and bounce around and talk about it. But it's nothing that's going to log you into, 20 minutes of discussion. Maybe 5 minutes just to do your warm-up, and then you move on to the next one.
So the warm-up involves a definition and the generation of examples of the review concept or concepts. So he uses cards, which Dorothy's in the process of making, which will be in the files. So he uses a card that, like I said in the last session, us MSLE people love a deck, okay? So he uses a deck too. So it says like noun, and on the back it tells you what a noun is and gives you examples for us. So you go through your cards and review the parts of speech you've taught, and then you might circulate the room and have everybody tell you a noun, okay? And so at first I wasn't so sure about asking all the kids that, because I'm really big on active engagement and everybody being engaged, but I've been trying it his way. And I have to tell you, I found out a lot of good information when I get to a kid and they still can't tell me a noun and we're 3 weeks in. Okay, we need to pull them back to the small group table and do some more intense instruction with this. So it's been really good for that diagnostic assessment. It's fast-paced, it's interactive, and only what you've already learned. We're systematic and we're cumulative and multisensory, and this is too. It should be done in sequential order so that students know when they are called on, but they don't necessarily know what they'll be asked. So we're going to model that in a minute, but if we were reviewing, I might say, tell me a noun. Now tell me a pronoun for that noun. Tell me an adjective that describes that noun. So we're reviewing all those things, and you know you're next, but you might not know what I'm going to ask.
Also, it needs to be done in sequential order. So remember, we don't let anybody pass, okay? We want every student to go ahead and give us some kind of response. So let's go ahead and see how we would unfold this. So let's say that we've done nouns, and we've done this warm-up, and you have your card out, and I remind you what a noun is. A noun, there's 2 kinds, common and proper. So we've done our review, okay? So I'm going to come through, and we won't do everybody, but what I would say to you is, what is a noun? Definition. Okay? Give me a noun that's a person. Give me a noun that's a person.
Dog. Oh, person.
Okay? Give me a noun that's a common noun that's a person.
Girl.
Okay? Give me a common noun that's a place.
Home.
Okay? Give me a common noun that's a thing.
Book.
Give me a concrete noun. Okay? Give me an abstract noun. Okay?
I know,
I like it. Give me a proper noun.
Morgan.
Okay? Give me a proper noun that names a place.
Washington, D.C.
Okay, so we go through and nobody knows that I'm not gonna say, give me a person, give me a person, give me a person. So I'm reviewing by going through, and I'm going in an order so that people know that they're going to be called on. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we would do for now. So we're gonna go ahead and start one. So I want you to list on your paper for a moment, things that you find, nouns that you find scary.
Nouns that you find scary.
Okay, go. Okay, and essentially what we're doing is we're list making using nouns. List making is a brainstorming strategy, so we're just gonna listen. All right, let's get a couple so that Deanna can get them on our screen. All right, let's come over here. Taxes. Bills. Spider. Snakes.
Angry father.
Father.
I said hate.
Hate. Movies. Monsters. Let's get a little more specific and use ones for like Halloween. What would be scary around Halloween? Let's go with her monsters. Frankenstein. Zombies. Vampires.
Oh, I can't type that fast.
Come on.
I can't spell Franken.
What, zombies? Zombies.
Sorry, spell it.
Goblins. I'm gonna throw witches in there. I'm gonna throw witches. Okay, tell me something about scary, and that's witches. Cauldron. Haunted house.
Are we started Halloween?
Yeah, witches. Witches. Spells. I'm back. Oh, say that. I love it. Warts. Of course, I can drive a stick. My other car is a
Broom.
broom.
Or if you're a hocus pocus, it's a vacuum.
That's okay. So you get the idea. You've got all this list making with nouns, right? Okay. So we've listed all of our scary things. What do you think we're going to end up doing with our list of scary things? We're going to write about them. So we've got our list there. So some of the things that you can do, and I'd like you to do one of these things right now on your page. I want you to write a sentence for one of the words, and I'm going to pick the word. Again, I want you to use the word which in a sentence with at least 9 words that has 2 common nouns. One is a place, one is a thing, and has 1 proper noun that names a person. Go.
We have to use the word which too, or
You have to use the word which. Must use the word which. Oh, I know. Oh my God.
It's past 2 o'clock, I can't be accountable for all these rules.
We just stop right there, okay? Just need to do the first 3. Just need to do the first 3. And I would not ask my students to do all of these. I would make sure it was something that I had done. I'm going to give them a sentence number of words. And I don't know if you were here last time, but what we said is 1 word per year of age. So, my kids always told me I'd be writing a million words, but eventually, it cuts off, right? So I'm looking for 9, 10 word sentences.
What's 3? Okay, that's better. Lose first 3.
9 words, 2 common nouns, one that's a place and a thing. I told you what one of those nouns is going to be. It's a witch, right? You got a witch in there, and a proper noun that names a person. Is it difficult? But I will promise you that when you start out slow and you start out small, eventually you're going to be able to put that on your board and do your business while you're organizing, getting ready to start your day, and kids are going to come up with brilliant sentences.
I feel like you're
I
gonna
promise
get
you that.
much better sentences
That's
if
what I'm
you
going
give
to do.
them
Yeah.
a guideline. Yes.
Okay, another 30 seconds. Right, and I always tell my kids a certain number of words, you can't start with the pronoun I, and off we go. Okay, let's share. Vicky.
I said, Eloise, the scary witch wrote the room to Walmart last night. What'd she get? Candy corn.
Well, you know where that comes from, right? It comes off a witch's feet. Candy corn. It does. Is that a card? Okay, somebody else. Yeah.
Oh, I said the witch in the park that got smashed by a house was not Glenda.
Oh!
That is really good. Excellent. Right over here. Yep, in the red shirt, right here in the aisle.
Me? Hate little witch flies on her broom to Alabama.
Louder.
Hate little witch flies on her broom to Alabama.
We have 9 words in there. Okay? All right? So, you see what you're going to do. If you're working on adjectives, you're going to tell them to put some adjectives in there, right? You're constructing what we call recipes. There is no purpose in teaching a part of speech unless your ultimate goal is to get them to use it in writing. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am. There's no purpose in teaching parts of speech unless your ultimate goal is to get them to use it in writing. Right? Nobody asks you when you go into a bank or you go into a store to circle all the nouns you have in the sentence. Nobody.
List them in your card.
Right? But they are going to ask you for certain things, like if you're going for a job, or if you need to even write a card or a letter to a friend, you're going to need to write your sentences. Right? So there's no point in simply finding, locating, and our kids are smart. They can do challenging sentences, and we need to go ahead and give them those sentences. So, okay, we've shared some, they were great. The new concept might be adjectives. Tell your partner what an adjective is. Okay, so that would be my new concept, all right? What is an adjective do? What does an adjective do, sir?
Describes a noun.
Perfect, it describes a noun.
Or a pronoun.
Or a pronoun. Think. Give me a sentence when an adjective is describing a pronoun. I'll call it that. Give it to me. You want the adjective to describe a pronoun. Anybody have one?
I am tired.
I am tired. Okay, following the linking verb am. Tired is the predicate adjective describing the pronoun I. Excellent. How about it is blue? Is the linking verb. Blue is the adjective describing what? It. So it is possible to actually do that with your adjectives. Okay? So you introduce the adjective, you tell kids what they are. You say it describes a noun. Now you're going to notice on the back of the cards, you also have the adjective phrase, the adjective clause, and the predicate adjective. When I'm introducing a new concept, the only thing I'm introducing is a noun describes it, right? An adjective describes a noun, right? And I'm going to stick with that for quite a while. Because I don't want big, I don't want sad, I don't want mad, I don't want glad. I want quality words to be written. So, let's take a look at some of the activities.
So after you've done your warm-up and you've done your review, and now you've taught your new concept, the activities are really where the kids get to practice. And Van Cleef suggests sorts, because those are, very multi-sensory. He does say that you need to identify sometimes. That's important too. But we're not going to spend all of our time identifying like you see in the grammar workbook. So these are just some examples of some activities that Dorothy has made. Okay. So here, we actually did this the other day. I've been helping 3rd grade with this. We're working on adjectives right now, and we're sorting adjectives by what they describe. Do they describe what you hear, what you taste, and what you feel? And this has been what I found too. I picked some really good words like these words, and it's been a great time to talk about vocabulary because they're not sure what the words mean. So we can discuss that too. So that's one activity. You can have them circle the adjectives, but you don't start with a sentence. Notice he's starting with phrases, so we're building up. Spied the small brown puppy, where they could or circle the adjectives, and then Van Cleve actually has them draw an arrow to the noun they describe. So he takes it one step further. So they would circle small and brown and draw an arrow to puppy. Okay? In the early morning. What's the adjective in this phrase? Early. Gobbled up the microscopic morsels. Microscopic. Good. So they would circle it, and then if you could have them draw an arrow to what they describe.
Right, and kids need to know you can have more than one adjective describing a noun. The rule really, though, is no more than 3 to describe one particular noun. You will notice here for small and brown there is a comma, all right? The rule with the comma is if you can flip them and still have meaning. So if you can flip brown and small, spied the brown small puppy, you need a comma. If you can't flip the adjective, then you don't. Think about the green Christmas tree. Are you going to say Christmas green tree? No. So you can't really flip them and have meaning and sense, so you don't need a comma. Okay?
Mind blown.
Yeah. So,
Me
yep.
neither.
So
Look, we're
3
making-
is the magic number, no more than 3. Okay? And we don't want an adjective, 3 adjectives that mean the same thing. Big, gigantic, enormous man. No. But you will get that. You discourage that.
We were actually working on this the other day too with adjectives, with the positive, comparative, and superlative, sorting adjectives by that. Now, the thing that was hard is that the word positive has a different meaning than it does here. We don't mean positive as in happy, we just mean it's the adjective where you're not comparing it to anything. Okay, so the positive would be hungry. When you're doing the comparative, you're comparing 2 things, right? So the brown dog was hungrier than the white dog. Whatever, you're comparing 2. And the superlative is when you compare against more. So the superlative would be the black dog was the hungriest of the pack.
Right. If you link this into morphology, if you were in here for our morphology, that's going to knock out this spelling issue, isn't it? Because you've already taught the rules through discovery of adding affix, ER, and EST. And that's in there. Do I teach them together? No. I only teach ER, and then I move on once they've got that solid, and then we do the EST, which is a whole lot faster, because what do I need them to learn to do? Change that Y to I. So if you work it with the morphology as well, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of, pulling out your hair, because they're going to be able to spell it, because you did it in the reading context for morphology.
Now, he has examples of these in his Writing Matters book, so when I was planning the lesson for 3rd grade, that's when I knew, hey, I need to do that. So, it's a great book. Here's a sentence recipe. Write a sentence with at least 9 words using the adjective delicious to describe a food you recently ate. So now we're giving them parameters, we're giving them an adjective, we're telling you the number of words. Now put it in context, put it in the sentence.
Right, because there's no purpose in teaching parts of speech, right? Unless you require them to write using them. So we were going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the dream car, but I'm not sure that we are going to have a lot of time. And we kind of want to move forward. But we would say, let's think about a car. Picture your car in your head, okay? What kind of car is it? Give me an adjective. Black car. How old is it? New black car. Tell me how many doors it has. 2-door, no, you're gonna see I'm like, losing it because I'm not gonna remember, okay? So you get the idea. You go around and you're asking the kids for additional adjectives. And while you're doing that, you're typing that on there. And you're getting those adjectives in there. And you're eventually, when you're finished going around, you might only want to do maybe 5 or 6 people and then take a different topic and do 5 or 6 more. Then you've got a really great topic sentence.
We did it about cake the other day.
Yeah.
Because 3rd graders love cake. And so it was really interesting what they imagined in this cake. We had like a 30-layer huge cake with chocolate and roses and happy birthday. I mean, it was insane.
Right, but you get the idea. So you're generating the adjectives, everything's good to go. No more than 3 describing the same noun, okay? So, we do that. Let's take a look at number 5 on your handout.
There are 2 parts.
All right. Number 5 wants you to read the sentence and circle the adjectives. There are 3 of them.
Notice how we put how many you're looking for. So if there's one that might be more difficult to find, they know that there's still one out there.
Right. And then I need you to write a sentence with 8 or more words using, I believe, elderly and wise.
It's session 4. That's you gotta follow your idea.
Alright, so what are the adjectives you found in that sentence? Right. What else? Her. Her is a possessive adjective. It looks like a pronoun, but we use parts of speech by their function. Okay? How is it functioning in that sentence? It's an adjective. And loud. Okay? Get your sentence down so we can talk to some new people.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the? The is an article adjective.
Okay, first of all, it's the. Okay? The. You don't know how many kindergarten teachers I say, stop saying the. The word is the. Okay, so put that, don't ever, because that's a really hard habit to break. Okay? The word is the. Yes, a, and the, they are articles. Okay? But we do not count them as adjectives because we call them what? Articles.
They did tell you like how many though and which one. So like if it's it's gonna be 1.
They're not counted though. Because think about how many things you'd be circling in a sentence.
That's true. We would do a lot.
You know, and if I said you describe your car, would you say the? Doesn't describe it in any way. Right? It's not a quality, it's not anything. What we want to avoid kids from doing is when they start listing adjectives, don't give me 5 colors. Don't give me 5 numbers. We want to work on that vocabulary and develop it and understand it.
Okay.
Let's get a couple sentences.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Sentence, 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 sentence. Could you read yours, please? Yes.
My wise elderly grandmother taught me how to bake chocolate cake.
Ooh. Okay, the lady in front of you, we dodged that bullet there.
Said the wise owl flew to the elderly man.
Ooh, that's interesting. Good.
In the December of her years, a wise elderly woman reflected on her life's journey.
Excellent. So you see what you're doing. You're giving them words that they're going to use. I like the fact that some of you pulled the adjectives apart and used them to modify different nouns. Some of you put them together. Excellent.
You know,
Okay.
okay. So we have the, we're getting there. This is the last step in and the 5 part of the plan. And so we wanted to show you an example of the one noun, okay? We might just have one of these on the board, like the scary old man had a hairy wart on his long pointy nose, and say, circle the adjectives in the sentence. You could do it as an exit slip if you wanted to see if they really understood what you've been working on. So just something, can be one thing to sum it all up. Another example is the man is very brave. So Dorothy's going to explain why very is an adverb.
Right, and kids will tell you that, right? They'll give you very. Very is not an adjective. It's an adverb telling you to what degree you're brave. You know, how brave are you? Very brave. But we put up the errors as well as the correct ones so that we use it almost as a teachable moment. We go, that's a really great sentence. I love what you've done. Let's look at that. Is very describing the man. If I said to you, what man? Would you say very man? No. So that's how we tell, and that's an adverb.
So when you target student difficulties and immediately, and then you strengthen the class understanding because you're fixing those problems quickly, okay? We're diagnostic, we fix it. So that allows you to do it quickly and efficiently. And using student work connects students to the assignment, and it gives the teacher valuable information about where students are and what they need next. And like, our kids love stuff underneath the Elmo projector. I mean, they love to see work up there, so it's just a great opportunity to sum it all up.
Okay, then we move on to prepositions. All right, we tell them this is what a preposition is, blah, 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 blah. Notice I'm not getting deep. I'm not talking about adverb prepositions. I'm not talking about adjective preps. I'm just telling you what a prep is. Some people I can remember in my younger days, I had some colleagues that actually had kids memorize prepositions. Was that
a song? Like Shirley?
okay? Does that have any value? No. And then they couldn't use it. Remember, you're not going to teach a part of speech unless you're relating it to some kind of writing. That is the goal, right? So, let's take a peek and see what we can do. So, if you would turn to number 9, you're going to see that you have a box. Yes? Okay, I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to use that box as your center, and I want you to put as many preps in and around on that box as possible. Notice I put one in the box for you to begin. Right? So go. Now with little people, you get a chair, they stand by their chair, you tell them where to go. Stand behind your chair, stand in your chair, stand next to your chair, stand beside your chair, right? Stand in front of your chair. You're introducing prepositions rather, in a multisensory way.
She plays prepositional I spy. I thought that sounded.
That's a good one.
I like that.
Yeah, that could be like your warm-up.
Yeah, it could be your warm-up.
You could use that as a warm-up. That'd be a good one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's take a peek. Does your box kind of look like this? No.
I mean, it's a square.
We have words on the page.
Right, I have words.
There's the prepositional phrases, okay? And notice your arrows are moving in the direction, into, in, inside. These are all preps that begin a prepositional phrase, which improve our writing. Once we get this prep thing under control and we know what the preps are, then we're going to move on to prepositional phrases. All right? And we're going pretty rapidly, but we're going to talk about adjective phrases. I like those first because children understand adjectives much easier than they understand adverbs. Okay? And then we're going to talk about the object of the preposition. If you remember when we talked in the previous training, ing words can be objects of the preposition. So we've got a lot of different things linking with morphology and parts of speech. So we introduce that. There we go. We've got our phrases and we've got our objects. All right? So let's take a peek. Deanna's going to give out a few cards.
I'm gonna give out some cards. You're like, don't pick me, don't fight me. Don't make me get out. Who needs to stretch? You don't need to get up. You're on stretches. You can get up. Do you need to get up? Obviously, I forgot one. Don't look at the back.
Okay, let's take a peek. If you were handed a card as the person on your left, get this out.
You can get up. It's okay. One more. Somebody.
So, if you received a card, come on up, and you need to arrange yourself in a sentence, please.
Where are we going for?
I should have got the
Starting
Get 2 Z's, y'all. Good luck with that.
It's done.
There you go.
This is not team building.
Their dreams under the stars. The company costs
I went to the store.
Okay, when you decide, come this way. Everybody come
Your future self.
All right.
Oh, you're missing us.
Okay, yeah, the one in the brown shirt needs to stay out. Down here.
You.
Wait, sorry, I'll help.
There you go. Right there. Now you're standing.
There we go.
Okay, if you are a prepositional phrase, please link arms.
Comment and watch. Gotta make sure this is right. Wait, under the stars, the couple talked of their dreams for the future. All right, who's got their arms linked?
There, and there.
Okay.
Why do we want them to link? Because what can they do?
Disappear.
They can move, right? What is the subject of that sentence? Couple. What's the simple predicate? Talk. Okay, it becomes important because we know the subject is never in a prepositional phrase. But look how wordy this sentence is. And kids might absolutely think stars, right? Because it's right up front. Right? Now, let's have our prepositional phrase people shuffled around to a different position. Our subject, predicate, and our article, person. Oh, you gotta keep your arms linked.
You guys are linked together.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, now, shuffle it in. There you go. Now, read that one in your head. Okay? All right. Now, can the prepositional phrase just be moved anywhere? No. Because it doesn't what? Read correct. All right? What's my subject?
Still couple.
What's my simple predicate?
Still talk.
Still talk. All right? This is what we have. For the future, the couple talk under the stars of their dreams. See if we can move a prepositional phrase
That
again
does not
to make
sound
it.
right.
Under stars,
We need to move
we
it.
still got a whole lot.
I think we need to listen to Polly. Polly says that they need to move.
Move this.
Yeah.
Couple needs to be
What can be, yeah.
talk of the future, under the stars, for the.
That changes where the sentence starts. We're not breaking our talk.
This is where it becomes important that you know if it's an adjective or an adverbial phrase, right? Because that's where it's going to be located. What is for the future, adjective or adverbial?
Not yet.
Verbiage.
Because it's telling you what?
The amount of time.
Some time.
You can't break the wall.
You guys think Oh no, you're for the future.
That doesn't make sense.
Bring them with you.
Got it?
There we go.
Where's your turn? There you go. Okay? The couple talk of the dreams for the future under the stars. Okay? We just edited the sentence. We revised it, right? And we can see and tell kids, you just can't move stuff. When we ask kids to write sentences and to use variety, they just start moving stuff all over the place, even if the sentence doesn't make sense. We need to let them know that we've got to move it so that it does in fact make some sense. Will I give beginning sentence writing students something this long? Absolutely not. Will I give them all of these prepositional phrases if I had not taught them? Absolutely not. Thank you very much. Send your cards all the way to the subject.
And I love this too when we think about like reading fluency. Those prepositional phrases can practice fluency with them as well. So it could be, just a double dose of something else. Practicing that fluency. Good job, everybody.
Leanna? Take it away. There's we did. There's the way that you can do it. Look what we did here. We added one more thing. We made it a complex sentence.
Okay.
So you just start small and get bigger and bigger. Okay? More complex.
All right. So your turn. Please complete number 4 on your handout. Let's see what it is. Write a sentence with 9 or more words that begins with a prepositional phrase starting with during and that has 3 nouns, 2 common, 1 proper, and 1 person, and 2 action verbs and 3 adjectives. Good luck.
Now, would I ask for those parts of speech if I hadn't taught them? No. And you might not be comfortable writing something with as many parts, but I'm not going to give you something that I have not taught you, that we have not worked on, that we have not done a lot of I-dos and we-dos.
At this point of the day, I would just be staring at that one.
You're not going to have any problem having that many words. You're going to have a really nice quality sentence. Can you do this in a pair? Absolutely. Okay? What part of speech do you need to understand to write this sentence? What do you need to know? Parts of speech? What do you need? Prepositional phrases? What kind of nouns? Common and proper nouns. I'm assuming I've already taught that. What else? What kind of verbs? Action. I have a whole crew of 4th and 5th graders that tell me they've never heard of linking or helping verbs. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. And you also need to know what? Adjectives. You will probably spend a lot more time working on adjectives than the other things as well, because you want to develop their vocabulary. And you don't want, green, fat, thin, skinny, hot. You want a lot of variety in quality sentences. Okay, any brave volunteers? There's one. Okay.
During the night, young Ashley couldn't sleep, so she went to get some warm chocolate milk.
All right. Anybody else? Any other volunteers?
During the day, the busy first grade teacher, Mrs. Aldrich in room 5, prepared and organized for a substitute teacher.
She put in a positive in there. That is excellent. So you see, based on what you've done, what you've taught, you're leading them along. Did I say go ahead and circle adjectives? No. Did I say go ahead and, list nouns and find all the nouns? No. I'm asking you to do what? Use what we've talked about. Use what you know. We want to get away from worksheets when it comes to parts of speech, because we don't develop literacy unless we understand parts of speech.
And this all goes back to that sentence comprehension like we talked about last session. If you can write it, then you can understand it, and it's all going to increase. Okay, so the last chunk of this, we're going to be talking about sentences. Since Dorothy talked you through a lot of the parts of speech, and so we know that there are two main parts. There's a subject and a predicate, and the subject is who or what is doing the action, and then the predicate is what the subject is doing. Now, you've heard, I know that you've seen in language grammar handouts where they'll want you to underline the whole subject and underline the whole predicate. And Van Cleef told us that there's no point, okay? We just want to find the subject and the predicate.
Right, the simple
okay?
subject, the simple predicate.
Because that's all you need to write a sentence. So that's what we want to look for. So keep in mind that the greater the distance between the subject and the predicate, or the subject and the verb, the harder the sentence is to comprehend. So that deals with this and the comprehension of it. So look at this example. Yesterday, while heading back from Atlanta, the Strongs stopped for a delicious late lunch at the Olive Garden in Oxford, Alabama. All right, what's the subject?
What's the subject? Okay. How do you know it's not yesterday? Oh, that's when. But I'm telling you, kids will go right for that first word.
Because it's at the beginning of the sentence, and that's where they're used to identifying the subject.
Right.
All right, so what's the predicate? The simple predicate. Stop. All
What
right.
kind of sentence is this? Okay. What other kind? Is there a clause? Independent? Is there a dependent clause?
Yes.
So what kind of sentence? Complex. Okay, look at your next one.
On a blanket under the starry sky, Jill and her husband, who had just returned after a year in Afghanistan, relaxed and sipped wine as they listened to soft music. All right, what's the subject? Jill. Okay, now what's the simple predicate? Relaxed and sipped. And you see how far apart they are. That makes it more difficult. It also makes it more difficult because it's not at the front of the sentence. And so that's what kids are used to, and we need to give them practice with these. They're a little bit harder.
Right, you want to give them these complex sentences and have them find those things. if you look at a textbook, which I never used, I never did a textbook, okay? It would be a sentence like, the man climbs the mountain. And I'm talking 3rd and 4th grade, okay? And then we wonder, why are those kids in that grade level writing a sentence like that? It's because that's what they're seeing. They need to see quality sentence work. Take it out of your text. Take it out of, my files. Take it out of something else that you've got much more meat in your sentence so that they see the kinds of things you want them to write.
And I've got to be honest, it takes a lot of brain power to write one, so I just use Dorothy's because she's already done the hard part. Okay, so here's some more examples of warm-ups, and once they get used to it, why not use it as a bell ringer or when classes change or when, they need to settle down. You could tell the kids to write a simple sentence with a compound subject and a compound predicate. You could even give them more parameters if you've been learning about the American Revolution and say, give me a simple sentence with a compound subject and a compound predicate about the American Revolution. So now you merge that into content.
Right, and what you're going to find they're going to start to do is they're going to write a compound sentence, not a simple sentence. So that's a diagnostic for you, right? Go, we need to work on that compound subject, compound predicate stuff.
Write a simple sentence that begins with a prepositional phrase, has 2 common nouns, 1 proper noun that's a place, and 2 adjectives. So there we go again with that sentence recipe that Dorothy loves so much. And that's where you get the benefit in the writing, is by giving them those recipes. That's where you get it.
But you have to teach the parts of speech and practice with them in sentence writing before you can expect them to do that. You see, the first direction is much easier than the second. So we're starting out easy and we're getting more difficult as we move down.
We've said this several times today, and it's still true that research says that the best way to improve comprehension is through sentence combining. So we can practice that here. The doctor entered the room. He spoke reassuringly to the patient. Take those 2 sentences and make them one. Who can tell me what that would be? Perfect. There's also, I know that we're talking about Van Cleef, but the Kilgallons, like Don Kilgallen, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he has all this stuff too, the combining, the where you imitate and where you chunk, and it just all flows so nicely. It's such a great way to teach this. Then you can do tandem sentence writing. I decided to order the chocolate avalanche dessert when we went out for my birthday. Now, you write the next sentence. Use delicious in a complex sentence of at least 10 words. So you write the next sentence with this recipe. Once the kids get really good, you can have everybody start and write a sentence, then pass the papers to the left, and the next kid write the next sentence that goes with it. So there are all kinds of activities you can do with the tandem writing.
You're requiring them to stay focused on the topic. Okay, we start out with just 1 simple sentence, and then you give me another one.
The trick-or-treaters rang the bell, but you have them complete that. It's a sentence starter. But the cranky man shut the door in his face. Okay. All right, so for younger students, here's some more activities. They could use pictures to sort. The subject would be the who or the what, and the predicate, of course, would be what they're doing. So you can use that to sort and practice. And here are some more sorts for kids that are readers, but a little bit easier. Sort subjects and predicates. Okay, and all this is kind of stuff that Dorothy's made in the files. All right, it's your turn. Look at number 8 and number 10 on your handout, and we want you to complete those. Combine into one simple sentence. That's number 8. Read and underline. I think the combining ones are fun.
What would I need to teach before students can sentence combine? Conjunctions. Okay, and I start out with those fanboys. All right? What are the fanboys? Which ones? Nor, but, or, yet, so.
Did you? By the end of the week, I was like, he's got
Very close to us. That'd be a day trip for us.
another writing teacher. That's how a lot of people say they were there.
I've been doing it a long time, so it's not out here to okay, but you know, when you find something, you go, oh my God. Well, I can see kids who don't know these things, and their writing is different. And so you need to go, what do I need to do? It needs to be different. So, you know, it might be better for an old person telling stories. Right. Well, and the right kid's writing is just going to be very mediocre at best. Okay, let's share number 8. Number 8. Where you sentence combine. Read your sentence, please.
My sister Jill helped my mother bake a 5-layer chocolate cake for Dad's birthday.
Perfect.
Did you do it a different way?
You could.
Yeah, I did it.
Anybody do it different?
I said, my mother and my sister Jill baked a 5-layer chocolate cake for my dad's birthday.
There you
That
go.
sounds right too.
Well, same thing as her. Easy, right? You're combining. Remember, we know that sentence combining improves comprehension. Can you use content area? Absolutely. Get your content in there, have them combine. And then you worked on number 10. Number 10. Oh, where's the simple subject in number 10? And? Storms. Okay, where's the simple predicate? What is it? Word design is built. Okay? Good, good, good.
Okay, now what Van Cleef said has the power in your sentences and sentence variety and writing is the clause. Okay, so I put a clause the other day on a sheet for 3rd grade, and we haven't talked about it yet, but I wanted them to identify adjectives in a clause. And one of them was like a Santa Claus? Not quite, baby. And then the next one said, I thought you said claws. Like, gosh, should we screen them? I don't know. Probably. Okay. So a clause is a group of words with a subject and a predicate. Okay? So every sentence is a clause because it's got a subject and it's got a predicate. An independent clause can stand strong by itself. It's strong. It doesn't need anything else with it. A dependent clause cannot stand by itself. It can fall over. That's going to come in handy in a second. So a few facts about clauses. There are 2 kinds, independent and dependent. The independent clauses are also called the main clause, and the dependent clauses are called the subordinate clauses. Okay? Every sentence must include at least one independent clause. And we know that every sentence is a clause. While dependent clauses have a subject and a verb, they cannot stand alone. So they have a subject, they have a verb, but they can't be by themselves. Dependent clauses begin with subordinating conjunctions or with relative pronouns. So some examples of those subordinating conjunctions would be like although. once, when. So those subordinating conjunctions, if they start the dependent clauses, you know, that's part of what makes them a dependent clause. Because that word is there, it can stand by itself. Okay. So, and part of the 5-point plan, you can do a warm-up, you can go through the cards. Part of what he talks about in his book is he has a method to the way that he lays cards out and displays them. So every kid could have a card, and you could have them lay them out how they fit. So you see that a clause has to have a subject, and it has to have a verb, and it can be independent and stay by itself, and it can also be dependent.
Do you mean that every child would have their own set of cards? Is that what you mean?
You can certainly do that.
See, sometimes I make small ones, like on the morphology ones, you've got a main deck for yourself to go through. But then I also have little ones that you run on the appropriate colors, laminate, and then cut, and then every child or every pair would have their own little set so they could go ahead and form it for PA, and they can do for phonics.
And in his book, he talks about how you lay it out. So like if you were looking at an adjective, you know, you would put a noun and a pronoun overlaying the adjective, because the adjective can describe a noun and it can describe a pronoun. And he goes more in depth in his work about that. I just thought that was
We were there
interesting.
for a week, so.
Oh gosh, yeah, we were. Okay, so here's what we want students to work to. Remember, he said that after the new learning, some activities, some really great activities, were sorts. So here we have them differentiating between a clause and a phrase. Now we said a clause has to have a subject and a verb. A phrase does not. So they need to know the difference between a clause and a phrase. Clauses have subjects and verbs, phrases do not. So since Rick was late, Rick and was, so it's a clause. In a box near the front door. No, those are just prepositional phrases.
Right, if you take your finger and cover up since, what do you have
A
left?
sentence.
A sentence.
That word is what makes it a dependent clause. That's it. Because it was raining. Cover up because you have a sentence.
That's how we know it's a clause.
Subject and verb. All right. Read the clauses. Write I for independent and D for dependent. While I slept late on Sunday morning. What's that? What do you think? It's got to be dependent because that word while makes it dependent. Okay? Apples make the best pies. Independent. It can be by itself. Beside the oak tree in my backyard. Dependent. Once the floors were waxed. Yeah. Well, if you cover up once, the floors were waxed, right? So the ones.
Phrase. Above it is a phrase. Beside the oak tree in my backyard.
Oh. It is a phrase.
Two phrases joined it together.
Didn't say that. But that's okay because the discussion is what's powerful, right? Once the floors were waxed is going to be dependent. Here's some more things. You can match the appropriate dependent clause. As soon as we get a brand new cell phone, it's just sandwiches and drinks. Finish studying for our exams. Which one makes the most sense? Finish studying for our exams. Although lunch is just sandwiches and drinks. So we're just practicing matching these parts. Write a sentence that follows the pattern. We're going to learn a little bit about this in a minute. But write a sentence that is one independent clause followed by one dependent clause. Write a sentence that's independent clause, fanboys, independent clause. Okay, so that means you're going to write an independent clause. You're going to use one of those conjunctions. Then you're going to have another independent clause. What kind of sentence is that? Compound. And then write a sentence that's a dependent clause, independent clause.
Talk about that comma.
Oh, I'm about to. It's coming. I'm about to. Okay, let's look at your handout, number 6 and 7. Okay. This just gives you an opportunity to practice some sentence expanding. Expand the sentence, the ghost haunted the mansion. And 7 tells you to just identify whether each one of these are independent or dependent. We're almost out of time. You can show it to them. Okay, we're moving on. We're just showing you some examples of some things you can do. I'm not going to call on you, don't worry. Okay, so here, I do want you to do this though. Stretch your brain for a second, if it wasn't tired enough. Write a sentence that begins with the word although. Go. Although there's such a great. Unless you tried really hard All right. Does anybody want to share a sentence? Yes.
Although other people were leaving the building, I wanted to stay and learn more.
Great. Okay, so she says, although other people were leaving the building. Okay, is that independent or dependent? Dependent. It had that subordinating conjunction, although at the front. Now the second part, what was your second part? I wanted
to stay and learn more.
So that is an independent or dependent? Independent. Did you have a comma there?
I did.
Okay, perfect. Using this word although is really, really helpful because you can develop complex sentence writing ability. You just wrote a complex sentence without knowing it because I started you with the word although. If you do the pattern, dependent clause, then independent clause, you have to have a comma. So we call this D, comma, I. Dependent clause, then you need a comma, and then you put your independent clause. So this is a simple formula, easy for kids. Now if you notice, I used an ugly font, and normally I don't. I can't stand it. But I did for this because it's important. Van Cleef made a big deal about the I being strong. It can stand alone. So I made sure to put the top and the bottom on there so it looks strong. It can stand by itself. But the D, it's wobbly with that big belly and it can fall over. Okay? So it's just an extra clue about what can stand alone or not. So one independent clause and one or more dependent clause is a complex sentence. You can have dependent clause, comma, independent, or you can have it independent, dependent. And if you do it this way, you don't need a comma. I thought that was mind-blowing for me. I really like that. So, can you identify I or D? If a dependent clause is first, remember it's followed by a comma. Since I am tired, that is dependent, I will take a nap. That is independent. And he suggests that you bracket those clauses. Because guess what? You can flip it. I will take a nap since I am tired. And this time I don't need a comma because it's ID. So when you bracket it, it makes it easier to change. You may be tired, but this is some good stuff. Okay. I'm like at that point. And this is the great time to be at that point with that pink sentence first. Okay. How can you use it cross-curricular? Okay. Have the kid, you can have this on the board for a bell ringer. Write a D, comma, I about the solar system. since Uranus is far from the sun, it is a cold planet, right? They can use what they learn in the content and use this formula to write a good sentence. And since it's DI, I need a comma, okay? Write a complex sentence of at least 10 words about rivers. Most rivers flow from north to south until they reach a longer body of water, such as a pond, lake, or ocean. So you can apply it in many situations. Now your turn, since it's late in the day, write an ID using since about the conference. So do you need a comma if it's ID? No, it's not a number. Write an ID about the conference using the word since. Yes. Make sure your independent clause is first. No, using since. If you start it with since, it's going to be a D. Can't start with since this time. It's got to be an ID. Anybody have just a really good one that they just have to share? No. Okay.
I'm going to improve my classroom instruction since I attended this conference.
Woo! Love it. Okay, so we are almost out of time, but this was one of the things that we did with Van Cleve that we thought was, that complex sentence part was powerful, but so was this. And so for the next few minutes, we're just going to briefly tell you what you can do. So he gave us a paragraph frame to help kids expand their writing. And so, of course, you're going to start with the topic sentence. Topic sentences can be the hardest to write. We brainstorm everything by writing a list. Remember that list of things that were scary? Well, we could pull that list back out and decide what we wanted to write about. Right. So we decided that we would write about Halloween because you told us about witches. So we talked about several things about witches: cauldrons, spells, brooms, warts. And so,
like that one especially.
Yeah, warts, green nose. Yeah. So you can pull all those together. So here we would write 3 scary things.
Right, and we would start out giving them the topic sentence. Because it's very hard to generate that and to focus their
You
writing.
should have seen us trying to come up with it.
Tell them about the student that just listed the football people.
So we've been working on writing lists with 3rd grade, and after I went in and taught them about writing lists of nouns, we wrote nouns in the classroom. We wrote nouns you would use to play a sport, like things like that. We incorporated it into their daily 5 stations during work on writing, and they could write lists of whatever they wanted. So I went in there one day, and I've got lists of my favorite foods, and I've got lists of shoes. I've got a basketball shoe problem. And then one little boy wrote a list of his favorite football players. Another kid wrote a list of the states. I don't care, I just want you to practice, and I think that's great. So if you had a list of the football players, I couldn't really take that and put it directly in a paragraph.
Why not? Because it's too what?
Too broad.
So she's going to help him narrow it down by now.
So pick one. Now let's write a list of things about him. Maybe his number, maybe what position he plays, who he plays for. Then we could take that to write a paragraph.
So it was a really good teachable moment. Yes, he got his list, but it was like kids often write off topic. It was so broad, he was just going to list people's names. She was able to bring it in and focus him by selecting one that he wanted to write about. And then what strategy did she use? They list made again.
Look, I'm just proud that it's on the same topic, that I don't have, you know, that's a big deal when you're starting writing, that you're writing about favorite foods and you have it written, you know, you don't add in like your shoes and that. I mean, just staying on topic's a big deal. So this is the outline that he uses for paragraph writing. You have a topic sentence, supporting sentence 1, supporting sentence 2, supporting sentence 3, and a concluding sentence. Your supporting sentences are those 3 scary things we listed, right? We're going to include those in our supporting sentences. This is where you can make the sentences different. Use those complex sentences, use those IDs and D, I's, and use those compound sentences. Use a variety, and that's going to make the writing even better.
Right, lots of we do's.
Yeah, you're going to have to
Lots of
model
we
this a
do's.
long time. Sometimes it's easier for the kids to write the supporting sentences with you and then go back and write a topic sentence. So that's okay too. The other interesting thing he said in our session is that when you're doing a 5-sentence paragraph, avoid transition words. He said that transitions in a 5-sentence paragraph are your punctuation. So he discouraged the use of transition words like then and next
First, second.
in a 5-sentence paragraph. You can use this frame for any kind of writing. You could use it for a narrative. You could use it for, an expository paragraph. You could use it for a content, something you're writing about the content. But you want to have kids practice writing about stuff they know, stuff they're comfortable with first. Make that happen. Get that good. Then you can apply it to the content. And then your concluding sentence is just a restatement of your topic sentence. So let's say that you need to expand this into an essay. It's the same thing. Topic paragraph, supporting paragraph 1, supporting paragraph 2, supporting paragraph 3, concluding paragraph.
Right, but you'll hang around on this for a very long time.
Very long time.
Very long time. Because you want to do a lot of we do, and then you'll release them to do, it independently. So there'll be lots and lots of work to do. I mean, if you think about it, I tell people like Deanna when she's teaching 3rd grader, my friend Tammy, she's a 4th grade teacher, you're trying to teach 4 or 5 years of grammar and writing that these children have never had coming to you. So don't be so hard on yourselves or on them, because you've got so much ground to make up.
And I think the most important thing he told us is that teachers spend too much time on the parts of speech and not enough time using them. So if we can do that one thing, we'll make a big difference. If you've stuck with us all day, you deserve an award.
But we don't have one.
I don't think we don't. But if you guys need anything, you have our email addresses. If you want